Hey everybody, this is Giancarlo Alino reporting for the Game Plan, and I'm happy to be joined by my guest today who's going to be talking about this exciting new partnership that's going to be kicking off tomorrow night on ESPN and WWE, joining the fray there with WrestlePalooza. He is a host there at ESPN. Arda Ocal. How you doing, Arda?
Giancarlo, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
And Arda, this is an exciting partnership here. It's going to be kicking off tomorrow night, WrestlePalooza. Brock Lesnar, John Cena. You're at ESPN. Know you're a big wrestling guy. So, what were your thoughts there when you heard about this whole partnership coming together?
Honestly, I heard it just like everybody else. I had no inkling. I had no heads up. I didn't hear anything about any sort of partnership like that until I read about it like everybody else online. And when I did, I had to check that the account wasn't fake because I was shocked and pleasantly, by the way, because honestly, it reminded me of when the NHL returned to ESPN back in 2021, because the NHL had been away from ESPN since 2004, so almost 20 years, but the hockey fans never left ESPN. We were still talking about hockey and the NHL within the walls of ESPN, very similar to wrestling. And I can tell you that there is a company group chat on Teams, and it lit up. I had never seen it so active than when that announcement dropped. And it is a very exciting time, particularly if you're a WWE fan in Bristol, Connecticut at ESPN right now. For someone like me, it's extremely exciting because now I get to contribute to something else that I love that was a big part of my life and my career. And now I get to dive back into WWE and pro wrestling coverage. So for me, it's amazing. And the coverage has been terrific all week leading up to WrestlePalooza, which is this Saturday on the ESPN app through the ESPN Unlimited. So I couldn't be more excited, Giancarlo. Like, I'm stoked for the card. I'm stoked for this new era of WWE and ESPN being in a partnership. And for me personally, like, I'm excited to be able to contribute to WWE and pro wrestling again.
And this is something where, like, UFC, obviously, they had the big deal with ESPN. They're going to be going off to Paramount. WWE comes in now. Like, did you ever think there'd be a time where pro wrestling would be on ESPN?
I think there is a history of pro wrestling being on ESPN with the AWA and different properties, etc. WWE had some shows I remember during the pandemic, some old WrestleManias aired on ESPN. So there'd always been some sort of partnership there. Obviously, WWE president Nick Khan is one of the smartest businessmen in the history of entertainment. Certainly, he also had a very, very deep relationship with ESPN in his former job as an agent for CAA. So the relationships at the highest levels were always there. But I do think that this feels like a really good time for ESPN and WWE to work together. I will say this, and I'll use NHL as an example. ESPN knows how to make events feel big. Like the NHL, the Stanley Cup final feels like an event. Four Nations felt like an event. The final being on ESPN, Canada, USA, and the round robin being on ABC. I feel that. I see that in the way that we approach it, and it's very exciting for me. And I see that this week leading up to WrestlePalooza, right? The amount of coverage, the amount of, the WWE superstars that you are seeing on various shows and how we are covering it on social, on .com, on TV, all different platforms. It's just, I know I keep coming back to this word, Giancarlo, but it is extremely exciting. And I love the fact that it's multi-year. It's a 5-year deal. I hope that it extends beyond that. And it's already week 1. We haven't even gotten to one event yet, and I'm already saying this, right? So, for someone like me, again, I'm just extremely stoked because the possibilities for me to contribute are endless, right? Like I could be hosting shows. I could be hosting a sports center that does a wrestling segment. I could be writing recaps for Raw and SmackDown and PLE events. I could be contributing social videos. Like there's so much opportunity for someone like me to contribute. And I have the hunger for that. Like, I'm very happy contributing to the NHL on ESPN. I will continue to do that this year. I will continue to host Sports Centers and I'm a 5-tool player at ESPN. I go where I'm asked, and I'm happy to do so. And now WWE is another lane, another option for me to be able to contribute. And that makes me very excited because if you were to ask me what were the things I loved the most growing up, it was hockey and it was WWE. Those were and video games. Those were like the three things that I gravitated to absolutely the most. Certainly growing up, and where my knowledge bases are deepest.
And also, we see with ESPN the kind of collaborations there, like some of the analysts there that have been a part of WWE. Pat McAfee, he's the Pat McAfee Show, WWE commentator, Joe Tessitore, the voice there in WWE, and yourself. Like, will we see Kyle Edwards pop up on WWE programming?
I don't know if Kyle Edwards, the name, will return to WWE programming. I have had so obviously I worked there for 2 years, from 2014 to 2016. I was an announcer. My name there was Kyle Edwards. And I've had the opportunity, WWE has been gracious enough to invite me back several times since I left, to do like the I guess I call them talking heads, like sort of like when you see WWE documentaries and you see different people speaking about moments, it's usually like a one shot looking off camera kind of thing. I'm very much in the mix for those, and I'm very grateful that I am. And when I do those today, my name key is Arda Ocal. So it's really cool that I had the era, like I look back on my time at WWE very fondly. I'm very glad that I was able to achieve that dream. It's a lifelong dream for many people, myself included. I was very gifted and just blessed to be able to make it there. It didn't work out for me there, but it's not like a bad blood situation at all. It was zero animosity at the time, and certainly not now. It was just very much, it just didn't work out. And I'll admit, at the end of that run, like, just because I had been surrounded by pro wrestling so much for so many years and it occupied so much of my time, I was a little burnt out of pro wrestling. Like, I just wanted a break from pro wrestling entirely. And I remember near the tail end of my time there, it was like just after WrestleMania. I was part of the WrestleMania cuts that year. And I didn't even watch WrestleMania that year. I took a separate gig where I think I hosted a film festival in New York that weekend. That's how burnt out I was. So it was the right time for me to just close the wrestling chapter at the time. But as they say, once wrestling is in your blood, like, it never really leaves your blood. So I feel in so much of a better place now to be able to contribute positively to WWE than I've ever been. Like, I'm just, happy in my life. My life is so different now. I have a family. I have 2 young kids. So the way that I approach my career even is so different than, as it should, than how I looked at it in my 20s and even my early 30s, right? So I just feel like I'm in such a good spot right now, and I feel like I have a lot of knowledge and I have a lot of thoughts to be able to contribute to the world of WWE and the WWE universe and the fans. And I know how passionate they are, and I know how voracious they are, and I know how much granular detail the hardest of core WWE fans loves about dissecting every single event and match, etc. But I also know how to talk to the casual fan and how to engage the lapsed fan, how to bring in the fan that had, like me, in many ways, had left wrestling behind for several years, but now are rediscovering it because of the partnership with ESPN. Like, I feel uniquely qualified to be able to speak to all of these groups to help grow pro wrestling and WWE. I mean, Triple H has said it in interviews on ESPN. Like, wrestling is hot right now. Arguably it's never been hotter, right? Like, it is in such a great spot right now, and a partnership with ESPN can only make it grow even bigger. So that alone just makes me very excited about what the future holds and what the future has in store for ESPN and WWE moving forward. And it begins with WrestlePalooza this weekend on the app.
And for everybody that's watching this, they've seen you all over ESPN, Sports Center, ESPN, and NHL. So, like for you yourself, in this role with ESPN, like what's a typical day to day like for you?
It honestly changes. Like in my first ever, I'm actually coming up to the 10-year anniversary of my very first gig with ESPN. I got hired full time in 2019, but the first show that I ever did, or the first gig I ever did, was actually esports, and we don't have an esports vertical anymore. But in 2016, I went to Madison Square Garden to cover the League of Legends World Championship. I did esports, and I knew nothing about esports. I knew nothing about League of Legends, but I had a month to prepare, so I treated it like a full-time job. I just read up on everything, watched all the old championships, learned the game, learned the particulars, learned who the stakeholders were, the important people, the teams, etc. Reached out to people. So by the time I got there, I felt comfortable enough as a traffic cop, as a host, with two former players on the desk to be able to weave and create a very good show for the informed audience, for the audience to enjoy. So that was great. And then from there, I just did different events. I did an MMA podcast for a couple years. I did more esports and gaming coverage. I wrote some articles for ESPN.com. And then finally in 2019, I got hired. And honestly, like my three buckets the three areas I was going to contribute to were MLS soccer, esports, and sports betting. And the only thing that I touch now is sports betting through rolling four lines on the point with NHL. So, at ESPN, it's like rarely has anybody had one job for X amount of years. Especially, like, I love talking to people that have been there for 20 years or more, because their career paths are so winding and so different, and so like it takes them to all corners of ESPN, So, and I feel like that even at year 6 full time, approaching year 10 part time. Now I host Sports Center, and I host the NHL on ESPN, hosting games, intermissions, and contributing in different ways. And now I get to work on WWE. And honestly, like up until this point, I had maybe written one or two articles about WWE, maybe doing a live file during a PLE event, but I never thought that it would ramp up to the point where maybe I'm contributing weekly now, and I'm doing on different platforms, etc. Like it's so different, but that I'm not unique in that at ESPN. Like ESPN is a unique journey for an employee, for everyone. And so that's what makes it fun, though, because you never know what next year is going to bring. You never know what, realm you may step into, or what you might get asked to do. And I have a very say yes to everything kind of attitude. So it suits me just fine.
That's great. And like even with ESPN and NHL, with that, like you get to see the Leafs, unfortunately, in the second round, an elimination of Florida. It looks like they made some changes this year. And the last time you spoke to us, that's like, it was on Vibe 105 here in Toronto. You said that you're not going to get your hopes up until it's the second round. So now that they've gone to the second round and experienced another Game 7 meltdown, what are your hopes now on this new era without the core four anymore, and it's Matthews and Nylander leading the way?
I mean, look, whether it's the core four or not, Mitch Marner goes to Vegas. There are still some great pieces on that team. Obviously, there's still a playoff contending team, but they are in a situation now that it's cup or bust. The situation has... You can't have players like Austin Matthews and William Nylander and John Tavares and Matthew Nyes, who's coming into his own. And quite honestly, that could be a new core four. Like Matthew Nyes, you could argue, was the player of the playoffs for them. And that's saying something. So I would say that the expectations are still sky high. I mean, it is a hockey-starved market, a championship-starved market. And it is one that the expectation will always remain. And it is exacerbated by the fact that they just can't find playoff success. But that Atlantic division is stacked. The Florida Panthers, for all the talk about the core four, they have a core 10. That they have people that are just re-signing and staying in Florida, and they see a long-term dynastic vision. That's what they want to build there. They want to build a dynasty. And people like Brad Marchand and Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart, and there's a very, very strong base with the Florida Panthers. Matthew Tkachuk. For them to have so many, Sasha Barkov, for so many pieces to commit long-term, to want to stay there, it just speaks to the culture. It's not just that, look, there are plenty of places that have hot weather and you can drive a golf cart to practice and it's a tax-free state and all that stuff. I get it, trust me. But at the end of the day, it's about winning championships and the culture in the locker room. And I think that the Florida Panthers have a dangerous combination. It might be at the highest it's been in a very long time for a team in the NHL. So for the Leafs, they have to contend against teams like that certainly they might have to meet in the postseason in some round. And then the question will become, do they have enough to finally get over the hump? Do they have enough to finally win? And if they don't, then, are more changes coming? Is it what will happen? Because people are going to continue to ask these questions in Toronto. That's just the case. That's just the way it is.
And Arda, also just to touch on that, the point about the Leafs there, I'd be remiss if I don't ask you this because it's going to be a talking point for a lot of hockey fans all year. Connor McDavid, his contract status. Are you buying into that hope there that he will be a Leaf come July 2026?
No, I'm not holding on any hope. I do agree that it will be the biggest distraction in the NHL all season long. If no early announcements come out, it could be every week, certainly every month. There's going to be the questions are going to be asked, no matter what market he's in. Any little thing leaks in the media, it's going to be dissected and scrutinized. This is the greatest hockey player of our generation, and he will be on the Mount Rushmore when it's all said and done. And quite honestly, he's been saying a lot this year. They've been to the Stanley Cup final twice in a row now. And for them, and they've said it themselves, cup or bust. In previous years, certainly feels that way this year. And the pressure is amplified when you have a player like Connor McDavid that is on a contract year. And if you can't win the Stanley Cup, I think everything changes if they win the Stanley Cup. But if they can't win the Stanley Cup this year, and there's more disappointment and heartbreak in Edmonton, we could be seeing a new era. And look, for all the people that think, no way he's going to leave Edmonton or get traded or whatever, signs elsewhere, Gretzky got traded. Gretzky left, right? Anything is possible. Look what's happening with Kirill Kaprizov even, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the same situation. What I am saying is I wouldn't be surprised if we got an announcement tomorrow that says Connor McDavid signed an extension, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we didn't hear a peep about it all year.
Because there's also that debate amongst fans, if you trade Connor McDavid, you can get a lot of assets back, but also if you're the GM in that position, it could be difficult. You could lose your job if it doesn't go in a positive direction. Should there be an internal deadline to say, you know what, we don't think he's going to re-sign, let's just move him and at least help move forward with Leon Draisaitl?
I mean, look, Connor McDavid is a generational talent. You want him on your team. But if it becomes prohibitive and it could really come down to him being unhappy and him wanting a change of scenery, him wanting to join a contending team. That's really what it could come down to. We just don't know. I will say that I believe it would be an absolute shame if Connor McDavid does not lift the Stanley Cup by the end of his career. Without a doubt. There's just no doubt in that whatsoever.
And he's a player that has a lot of pressure with how good he was in junior coming in. Another one was Sidney Crosby. We saw him win the Stanley Cup 3 times, and there's also been trade rumors about him. He said he's happy in Pittsburgh, but missing the playoffs can't be too positive. So do you think Crosby could be a name that jumps out as a surprise trade?
It's possible. I mean, I think that he's very loyal and he's been a very team-friendly guy for such a long time. That $8.7 million contract, right? Like, look no further than that. But if he has the hunger to want to win a Stanley Cup again, then, certainly that could be the case. And we could certainly see a situation where we see him in different threads. He stoked the Flames a little bit with the chatter about the Montreal Canadiens. So I don't know. That one is an interesting one. Does he go to Colorado and join his buddy Nathan McKinnon to try and win a Stanley Cup? Does he go to his hometown? Does he go to his childhood team, the Montreal Canadiens? But I wonder, in that situation, the Habs would still, to me, not have enough to be cup contending, even with Crosby. Like, certainly would be a threat, but I don't know if they would be, I don't know if they win against the Florida Panthers, for example, but, it's hockey, anything can happen. So, but do I think it's likely? I'm still not convinced about Crosby. I think it's more likely still, much more likely, that he stays as a Pittsburgh Penguin for the remainder of his career.
That's great there. And just one more question here, going back to wrestling, because I saw a clip of Stephen A. Smith angering a lot online with his top 5, putting Bill Goldberg at number 1. Just curious, Arda, you've been around wrestling too, even your time at the Score. Who would you put in that top 5 wrestlers in terms of like star power and in-ring?
See, this is the thing with these lists. First of all, it's a personal list. So you can't, it's his opinion. It's his list. He has Bill Goldberg on his list. Like that, there's no debate because it's Stephen A's list, right? My list is going to differ. Someone else's list is going to differ, right? Like that's just the way that it is. Now, let me break down the conversation though. Like if we're just general conversation about top 5, right? There's a difference between a top 5 in-ring technical wrestler or in-ring overall performer or draw or main event superstar or favorite wrestler. My favorite wrestler of all time is Mr. Perfect, but I'm not putting Kurt Hennig in the list of the top 5 most important professional wrestlers of all time. I'm putting him at number 1 in my favorite wrestlers of all time, right?
Yeah.
Could he make the list of most technical and like best in-ring performers of all time? I would put him in the conversation of a top 5, and on that list would be the likes of Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. Does Kurt Hennig fit on that list? Sure. But that's the beauty of the debate among wrestling fans, is that everyone has their own taste and style and preference, because at the end of the day, wrestling is an art form, right? It is subjective. So your brand of art that you favor will certainly differ from someone else's brand. Maybe someone loves brawling and they would put Sheamus at the top. Maybe they or Bruiser Brody at the top, Like maybe they love that style. Maybe they love luchador style and they'd put Rey Mysterio at the top or Dominic Mysterio at the top, right? Or Penta or El Santo or Blue Demon, right? Like that, it just goes down to preference at the end of the day. Maybe people like European Catch and they prefer William Regal and Robbie Brookside and Johnny Saint, right? Like it really is it's like going into an ice cream shop and seeing all the different flavors available to you, right? So if you're asking me who my top 5 favorite wrestlers are, Kurt Hennig is number 1. And then you have Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, you have John Cena, and you have, in terms of favorites, maybe Randy Savage. I'd probably put, that would be my top 5 for favorites for sure. But I mean, ask me again in a week and it could change, right?
And you've interviewed like a lot of wrestlers throughout your career. Like, is there one that you hope to have, or like maybe didn't get the chance to, that if you can go back, you would love to do that?
I'd love to. I mean, John Cena, I've never spoken to. I've only spoken to backstage when I was working at WWE. I would love to interview him for an hour. Like, I'd love to just sit down with him for an hour and just break down his career. I love dissecting the wrestling from the 80s and 90s. So I love sitting down with people like Shawn Michaels and and Bret Hart and dissecting, some of the best interviews that I personally felt fulfilled by where I sat down with Bret Hart once and I just talked about his 1992 and we just talked about all those matches, and he revealed to me there that the original plan for SummerSlam 92 was Bret and Shawn in Washington, D.C. in a ladder match. And that was the reason why some wrestling fans might remember there was a Coliseum videotape. I believe it was called Smack 'em Whack 'em. I'm not entirely sure about the title, but there definitely was a Coliseum video release that had a live event ladder match. And that was the first known ladder match in WWE. And Bret Hart had known about the concept from his time at Stampede Wrestling. He wanted to pitch the idea, and basically the response was, go and put on this match and give it to me as a proof of concept. So that's why Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels had this one-off ladder match. I believe it was in Dayton, Ohio, maybe? Anyway, so they have the match. It was a great match. And so that was the original idea. But then the venue shifted to Wembley Stadium, and it became Bret versus Davey Boy for the Intercontinental title, which was one of the all-time great matches and one of Bret Hart's best performances, because as he says it, it was very much a one-sided performance, and he was really, the maestro of the match. So, but things like that interest me. I just love dissecting, the in-ring work, because I appreciate it so much, and I know what it takes to put on a good match, and I appreciate the wrestlers as artists and athletes being able to tell the stories that they do. So I love dissecting them and I love learning about them. So, just another reason why I'm so excited to have WWE and ESPN in a partnership like this, because maybe that gives me more of an opportunity to be able to learn about these things. And I couldn't be more thrilled, because there's so many wrestlers like Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Becky Lynch, AJ Lee. I'd love to talk to Drew McIntyre again. We spoke with him for Sports Nation back in the pandemic. Talk to Triple H regularly. That would be great, just to talk about the business end of things and how WWE is hotter than ever. It's never been more profitable. There's so much positive to look forward to, right? And then talk to, there are no shortage of wrestlers. Stephanie Vaquer, Io Sky. Talk to, a lot of these wrestlers will be performing at WrestlePalooza on Saturday. There's no shortage of interesting stories that these wrestlers have. Many of them ex-athletes. So it's so much fun, man.
Yeah, I agree. Before we wrap up, Arda, and let you go, how can our viewers here and listeners at the Game Plan stay up to date with everything you're doing at ESPN and follow you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Arda, ARDA, at Arda Ocal on Instagram, Arda Ocal Talk on TikTok. Just very excited, man. Everything is really, really ramping up. And I can't wait for WrestlePalooza this weekend. I'll be writing a recap for ESPN.com. I'll be doing some fun stuff for social, so you can look forward to, and doing some segments on radio as well. So you can look forward to some incredible coverage, across the board from all of us, because we are all very, very excited for what's to come with WWE and ESPN.
Highly recommend that follow, and highly recommend everybody check that out on ESPN. And Arda, I really appreciate you sharing your time and coming on here to talk all about this, and I wish you all the best, man.
Thank you very much.